So I've not managed to record one of these yet. This is an env200 battery pack, 24 kilowatt hour, exactly the same as the Leaf one. So it's got a part number and a unique serial number, which helps us to identify the batteries. They're a slightly different layout in that the cutoff is right at the front here, and they have the inlet for the cooling on the vehicles that use it here. And as you can see, the main power input is angled off to one side. Other than that, the basic principle's the same as on the Leaf, but I'll run you through this one so you've got all the information. These particular ones that I stripped down, I take the modules out to rebuild tired ZE0 or AZE0 Leafs, because these modules are the newer chemistry, and because the batteries have cooling in, they tend to last a lot better, so they make a really good low cost upgrade for a very old Leaf. The advantage with that, of course, is that there's then an empty casing with all the wiring, connectors, cooling, etc., and the BMS if you're planning to build a Chinese cell upgrade for your env200. These are absolutely perfect. The other thing that I get a request for on these is to supply the BMS, because you need to send the BMS to China first for them to reflash it. And if you buy, for instance, the one from this pack, I can send it direct to China for you with your battery order reference number. They can then reflash it, send it back to you with your cell package kit, and then you can get your kit built up without having to wait for the carriage to and fro for the BMS. Conversely, if you buy the whole thing just without any cells inside it, then you can not only send the BMS away to get it reflashed, but you can get your upgrade kit built up before you have to take your env200 off the road, and it's a relatively straightforward job to just swap them over. But anyway, going to dive in here. I'll show you the differences and the similarities to the Leaf. Here we go. So as always, the first job is to remove the main battery cutout to make sure that you don't go zapping yourself with 400 volts of HT power. It's exactly the same as the Leaf cutout. Struggling to do it one-handed, so I'm just going to have to do this without holding the camera. So here we go. It's just that first bit that's difficult to do. So it comes up to, I've clicked it back down. Here we go again. So as I was trying to say, the catch comes up a certain distance, and then you've got an extra security catch in here that needs to be released before you can pull it up. And now, of course, all of those terminals are no longer live, and inside we've already got the first break in the power system, so that there's less danger of any electrocution. But obviously gloves are worn, and once the lid is off, the first thing I do is disconnect all the major power leads and bus bars, so that we're dealing with relatively a lot smaller voltages, which obviously are relatively a lot safer. But there's always a risk working with DC, so you have to take all the relevant precautions. I'll have to ask you to forgive the sound of my compressor going in the background. So the first job is to take out 6 bolts. I use the air ratchet because then it saves wearing out all my joints. So 6 bolts holding down this aluminium cover, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 each side, exactly the same as the Leaf, which I'll whip out. And then to save you having to listen to the compressor anymore, I'll pick this back up in a second. So here we are, the 6 bolts removed from there, and I've taken the plate off. I've got the 5 each side removed. So now we're ready for the next noisy job. Again, exactly the same as on the Leaf, using this vibrating cutter to cut the seal mastic that's in here all the way around. Yeah, and then the lid will just lift clean off afterwards. I'm not going to bore you with the noise and the view of just me cutting through some rubber, but I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. I am going to show you this again because it makes such light work of the seal that's in here. It's very noisy, so I'm not going to try and talk over it, but I'm going to literally show you in real time just how quickly it deals with cutting through the rubber. That easily. Definitely recommended. You can do it with a knife. You've got to be a lot stronger and braver than I am. The tool, obviously, because I do loads of these, the tool makes life very straightforward. And here we go. Probably only 10 minutes after starting with the cutting tool. Top's loose all the way around. Okay, I've just found an edge. There we go. So yeah, it's all done, ready to come off. Then I'll give you a brief rundown of how the inside is different. So starting from the back, the pack is a lot narrower, so there's only 20 modules here, so 40 cells. They get around that by squeezing in more cells and modules here. They're a lot closer together than they are in the Leaf because the pack is narrower. And then they've got the relay contactor set here with the main cut off here, and then the radiator with fan for the cooling, which has ducting that runs through here. You can see it going through here, and then is ducted also to blow cold air while the battery is over 20 degrees centigrade and charging, and that works on DC as well as AC. So yeah, helps to give them a slightly easier life. I've actually got a customer who's after the BMS on this one to get it reflashed, so that's the first thing I'm going to do, is take the BMS out so I can get it sent off to him. Then I'll pull the cells out, and I'm just waiting for the customer to bring his Leaf to me, where I'm going to put these cells modules into his Leaf. We know that there are front and rear cells modules. Obviously there's not enough rear ones, so what I have to do is take the very outer casings off some of the used Leaf modules and transfer them onto some of the more frontward env200 modules, but I'll show you that further on in the video. So the BMS on these is actually a lot easier to remove than it is on the Leaf. I've pulled out the two wires that stick out this side, and on the env200 there's only two nuts that hold the BMS into the car with brackets on that suit, which is a lot easier because in the Leaf you have to undo these back two, and then there's two more in here. But yeah, it's a lot simpler. So I'm just going to remove the cables from the bottom here. They're all the same basic style, with this little push down clip that you have to release, and then you can pull the wire out, but they're all color coded and matched so they can only go back in their perfect position. So nice and easy. So here it is, disconnected, ready to send off to the customer. You can see the part number on it that confirms it's a env200 one, which is slightly different because of the inbuilt cooling, so the program is slightly different to the Leaf. You have to forgive the constant hum in the background. It's my cell tester. I'm just running some cell strength tests on some 30 kilowatt hour modules that I've dismantled the pack for, so that I've got some good ones to repair faulty packs with, and then a whole load will be left for doing solar storage systems. Vivne, I believe, do a lovely system where you can drop 24 of these modules straight in. They provide all the hardware and the software to do it, so you literally just end up with, if I've understood it correctly, a plus and a minus that you connect to your inverter. So yeah, nice and easy. So if you're planning to do a battery upgrade on your env200 with Chinese cells, people like Vivne need you to send the BMS to them to get it reprogrammed, and they then send it back with your cell kit. Obviously the simple solution is to buy this unit or one similar, then I can send it directly to them. They can reflash it, They can send it back to you with your cell kit, so that when you get it all, you're ready to build it straight into your battery casing, unless of course you want to buy the empty battery casing as well, in which case we can sort that out too. So yeah, you can have this BMS. They're only 150 euros, so it's not going to break the bank, especially compared to the total cost of a battery upgrade. And it does mean, as I say, that when the cell kit arrives with the reflash BMS already in it, then you're ready to start putting it straight into your casing, or, as I've said, if you're buying this casing, ready to put it straight into here, and then your env200 will have much less downtime. So just programming another EV's enhanced battery translator kit. This one's to put a 40 kilowatt hour battery in a 30 kilowatt hour car, so a 40-2-AZE0L, just to protect the newer battery a little bit more. I'm putting in a 40 kilowatt maximum CHAdeMO rate, and automatically this translator has the AC charge percent limit function built in that you can control from the dashboard. I will try and link the video as to how you do that in one of these after the end of this video. You'll have to excuse all the humming and buzzing, but I'm in the middle of testing some batteries for their capacity too, so a bit of a techie day today. So even though the basic principle between this and the Leaf battery is the same, there's some detail differences. The most obvious of which are the braces that go across between the front sections and the cooling ducting, which has the usual plastic pop pins in it. And I'm going to need to get these all out and across here before I can get to the retaining bolts that hold the battery down to the frame. It's got the same 13mm bolts at the end. At the back you can see it's got the same 10mm bolts holding it into the casing, but a lot of the rest of them are invisible. There's another brace here between the center section and the middle section. So yeah, gonna have to get those out of the way first, and then we can carry on with the cells. But as always, the first thing we're going to try and do is detach the high voltage cabling so that we can reduce the voltage that could be seen by mistake at any given time. But obviously wearing sufficient protective clothing reduces that risk as well. So with the cross braces and the plastic clips all undone, this bit of trunking just lifts clean out. It says here, not so easy with one hand. But there we go, showing access to the bus bars and so on now, so that I can disconnect some and reduce the potential voltages between them, and then crack on by pulling cables, etc. off the module assemblies, and then we can get the modules out the same as with the Leaf. The ducting itself, as well as the slot that we saw earlier that's blowing over the rear modules, the center section also has these holes through which will blow cold air onto the front and center modules, just to try and help keep the temperatures down while you're charging over 20 degrees centigrade. Okay, so that's got all the nuts off the bus bars. Still need to get the bus bars out. Here's the pile of nuts because I just put them back in their relevant position. There's more bus bar connections here, and then there's one here, but the main cut-off block on these has to come out to get the cells out, because these two go on top of the ones on the battery, and therefore we have to lift this up and out just to get enough room to get the contacts away, and then we can think about undoing the modules and removing those. So there's only 4 nuts holding down the main contactor, and now that I've got those undone, I've been able to lift the unit off the battery connections so that the bus bars are now visible, and it's possible to think about starting to undo the module sets, the banks, and get them drawn out the same way as we do with the Leaf. So the 10mm headed bolts that hold down the rear set of modules are quite deeply buried inside here, so I'm going to get those undone and pull them out with a magnet on a stick. But the 13s and the 10s around the back, those should be very straightforward. And there we are with my trusty engine crane. Nice and easy to pop a chain across, obviously making sure that the loose end doesn't dangle down towards the front, although we've got everything still covered. Just double safety on everything. So yeah, modules are lifted clean of the pack. Nice and easy to drop them down now. I tend to put a wooden board across the legs of the engine crane, and then the module assembly can sit on that while I whiz out all the bolts that hold it together. And obviously on the other side with the AV bolts that hold the framework onto it, but also all the nuts and screws that will be hidden underneath on the wiring for the bus bars and for the BMS sensors. So yeah, onwards. So with the battery on a pallet, it's actually at a comfortable height here that I can use this old beer crate as a seat, so that I'm not having to stoop too far. First job is going to be to take this bracket off the back. Then I'll take the two brackets off the front, and then we can look at doing the coverings on the BMS and bus bar connections and go from there. So here we are, all the bolts are removed from the top bracket now, which has come off. I've taken the bolts off the bottom bracket, but it's actually just hanging up behind the plastic for the bus bar holders. So I'm going to take the bus bar holders off next, and then when we're done we can go for the 4 bolts that go right through the whole lot and the end plates, and then we're all in pieces. So here we are with all the bolts and screws from the middle sensor connections all removed. The plastic backing just pulls off, and once that's off, that will then free up that to come off. And now we're ready to come and do these 4 bolts at the end. I prefer to do just a little bit on each one at a time, so that we're not letting all of the pressure go on one corner alone, but that's just a me thing. And here we go, the 4 nuts are nice and easily removed because there's basically no swelling on these last generation 24 kilowatt hour modules, so that's out. The 4 center bolts will come out as well. 1, 2, 3 and 4. That then frees off this last end plate, and beware, the modules will always try and drop down, which is why you don't use a support beam or pallet that's too thin, because if you drop them on the floor there's a good chance you could damage them, and we don't want to be doing that, especially where we're reusing them rather than scrapping them. So I've taken out all of the nuts that are holding the side banks of modules into position. That's the whole lot. There's only 4 on each side of each bank, so it's not as many as on the Leaf because it's a slightly smaller run, but very tight fit between them because it's so much narrower battery pack. But anyway, we're ready to pop the chain onto each one of these in turn, lift them up with the engine crane again, and then drop them onto the pallet so that we can get them dismantled too. My apologies folks, it's been a while since I stripped one of these and I forgot this little detail. This reinforcing bracket that goes in the side bank of modules needs to stay in while you're lifting it out, because otherwise when you lift it, if there's any bending, the cells will try and press against each other, and that's not a good thing. So yeah, I've put the bracket back in, and when I go to do the other side I'll just swap the bracket over to the other side as well, make sure there's no issues. But anyway, we're all chained up, ready to lift and dismantle, same as we did with the back section. So because these are clamped into their assembly vertically rather than horizontally like the back section, all we've got to do on these ones is get the covers off the bus bars, get the bus bars all undone with their bolts and their screws, pull off the plastic like we did on the last one, and then we just undo the bolts that go down through the retaining plates, and we're away. Rather amusingly, when you get this far, you can see that Nissan have put a couple of ducts in here to take the cool air from that central duct that I showed you earlier, but this bottom bus bar on both sides basically pretty much covers over it. But hey, the thought's there, the principle's good. Once you've got the main cutout out of the way, you can also see the bus bar that contains the current sensor, which needs to be undone and lifted up out of the way. Obviously, when the main cutoff's going back, I can just drop that back into place so that it's where it needs to be if the buyer ends up rebuilding it with standard cells. So there we go, it's all stripped down. Everything except the cells is back inside, ready to go. Just going to call it a day today, and I'll put the outside bolts and the bolts holding the clamp back together. I can put this back on obviously because there's no battery in there to cause us any troubles. As soon as I remember which way around it goes. There we go, so 6 bolts in there. I think it's 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, 10 bolts to hold the cover on, and we're all done.